Hi, welcome to Artist Muse. This is Dana Haynes, and today we're going to be discussing vulnerability and artist. And this is part 2. I kind of already started this topic at the beginning of my other video about the marigolds. Want to start out by kind of talking about my early childhood and my art influences. I lived on a I think the cat's going to start meowing on us during this. Great. They want attention. I grew up on a farm in Missouri. I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, who spent a lot of time with her sister that lived in Arkansas. And she would travel down there. It was about 30 minutes away or so, which ironically, before she passed, she was living about 30 minutes away, and we would travel back and forth to each other. But my grandmother was a big influence on me becoming an artist. It was a positive outlet. It, made me feel good about myself, and that's in a really kind of scary world. You'd think, growing up on a farm, everything's content and peaceful, but it was like that when we would visit her sister's house. And her sister was probably more into the art. She was going to I guess you call them flea markets, or and selling her paintings. And she was actually a successful artist. So I didn't grow up with this notion that you couldn't be successful as an artist. She painted a lot of like Bob Ross type paintings, flowers, and my grandma kind of got into. She'd go and borrow the art books from her sister, and she'd bring them back to her house, and she'd paint mountains or flowers. She was really into. She had a whole garden of flowers. So thinking back to all that, I'm kind of thinking about the vulnerability that I felt as a kid. When we would visit, it was peaceful there, and I liked that feeling, because at home it wasn't always peaceful. Sometimes certain parent would fly into a rage, or we went through my grandpa passing. So it was, there was parents fighting and that kind of stuff. It wasn't always peaceful. And so I really liked visiting and seeing what she was doing. And, she had a new book, and I spent a lot of time at my grandmother's house and practicing with those books myself as well. My grandma would share her oil paints, which, kudos to her, because I don't even think they were cheap back in that day, oil paints. So my first beginnings in painting actually started out, kind of painting apples, or, flowers or leaves and trees and stuff like that. And, we were real grounded family, and I never quite, the sister was like really, really devout Christian. She'd go to church every Sunday, and, my grandma just wasn't like that. She was kind of, let them figure out what they think about God on their own, because she was still maybe struggling in some ways with her own grief and what she thought of God. So she didn't really push it off on anybody, but I'm trying to come up with a word. I'm not exactly Wiccan or pagan, but those kind of religions kind of call to me, that this Mother Earth sort of. So this isn't like my, well, it's my style, but this is more of a um, farmhouse kitchen sort of painting that I'm doing for my own kitchen, which, you know, I'm sitting and doing the flowers, and I was thinking a lot about her and her sister and how those two, they got along exceptionally well. And then you go into some of the, we moved, I think when I was 10, almost 11, or just turned 11. We moved up north, and my sister, well, she had other sisters, and she didn't get along with them the same. You would go over to their house, and they'd argue, and they'd fuss and fight, and, you know, I can remember my grandmother kind of getting off the phone upset and crying, and it got to the point that they always had her upset, that she finally came to a decision that she just wasn't gonna, you know, as much as she loved them, it just wasn't doing any good, just go round and round with somebody, and she stopped speaking to them. And I've had that situation come up in my own life, where you can love somebody very much, but not like who they are or what they're turning into, and the fact that they keep you upset every time you see them. They're doing something or saying something that's just totally out of line. And at some point, you know, you have to let them go, you know, even if you love them. And some of this painting, I sat and thought about that sense of belonging, you know, that you're always related to your mother and father's family, but at the same breath, at some point, you go your own way and um, have your own family. So I have 3 grandchildren now, kind of sitting in my grandmother's boat. They're all newborn to 3 years old, and so they're all tots. And I have 3 children. So this painting, each flower represents one of my own children. This is kind of my own vine, and that's kind of what I was thinking about. You know, at some point, no matter how much I love my siblings, there's a point where one of them, you know, I believe is an alcoholic, and she's just rude and nasty and has screwed me over, and I just can't take it anymore, no matter how much I love her, which I do. You know, it's very conflicting to have feelings like that, you know, and being judged like that. And so, you know, part of this talking about artist vulnerability is actually one, you share your emotions in your story, but, you know, I do remember, you know, feeling very accepted visiting over there and well taken care of. And sometimes, you know, I'd want to go there just because, hey, you know, it's peaceful. It's, you know, I'm allowed to be over there, kind of what I am, without, you know, they had a place to run and play outside, and nobody got hurt, and there wasn't a bunch of arguing, fussing, and fighting. And so to me, you know, when you're talking about vulnerability, that's kind of what I think of. Because, you know, some of the harsher, you know, arguing and bickering back and forth, you're kind of, no, this isn't cool. I don't want to be here. Kind of, to me, that's kind of more vulnerability. So when somebody says artist vulnerability, I'm like, well, yeah, I get it. You're supposed to show your emotion. And, you know, sometimes that doesn't always translate into decorating, but I'm decorating right now. And some of this, one of these flowers, I kind of made a little different, and it's a different color, and, you know, so it's still speaking to, you know, I recognize that I have these six little individuals that are mine in my own mind, you know, so to speak, and, you know, that we come from others like that. But, you know, the part of being vulnerable for an artist is once you get past the financial and, you know, just food, water, and shelter part of it is, you know, exposing yourself emotionally. If you put your emotions into your paintings or your drawings or, you know, how you feel, it can be criticized. And that can make you feel ostracized. Now, I'm lucky. I didn't have that experience when I was um, being taught more serious techniques and art techniques and learning how to do things. So, you know, I had people that stood before me that were a prime example of, you know, they were accepted because they did their artwork. They used it to socialize. They made money off of it. So, it I didn't have this "you're gonna fall on your face doing it" sort of mentality. And the only time that I really experienced maybe true vulnerability, and this was young, you know, I don't think after that point that I felt that, oh my God, what's everybody going to think of it kind of thing. Maybe, you know, getting on YouTube or doing something like this, there is maybe some vulnerability. Oh my God, what if I say the wrong thing, the wrong person hears it and takes it the wrong way, or throws a big fit, or, you know, maybe that kind of reaction, maybe to the videos or me sharing stories might be a artist vulnerability. You know, exposing yourself to others and being honest and authentic. But it's something that artists need to do. They need to do it in their art, and they need to do it when they speak about their art. But the first time that I experienced being vulnerable or worried about what others thought of my artwork was like grade school. You know, I would spend weekends and hours redrawing Disney stuff, and, you know, I got pretty good at it, and I would sit at a classroom table and kind of keep it to myself. You know, I practiced there too, and it was maybe third grade that another kid came up and he picked on me relentlessly. And, you know, I had my drawing, I think it might have been Bambi or something, I don't know. You know, something in front of me, and he stopped, and he just stopped dead in his tracks from pulling my pigtails to, oh, that's really good. So, you know, in that moment, I remember being very scared that he was going to take it and rip it up and, you know, humiliate me or judge me in a bad way, and but that didn't happen. So I don't think, for the most part, that I've been too worried about what people think of my art. Um, which may be, you know, some of the problem. Because I've had somebody uh, about the abstract art go, well, it's really nice and I like it, but I can't see it hanging in my living room. You know, and here I'm going, well, where wouldn't, why wouldn't you? You know, um, and that just boils down to different decorating styles. And the concern was, well, it didn't match. So then I went and I made a bunch of stuff that matched pastels and, you know, different types of living room setups. But yeah, I just, when they're talking about artist vulnerability, you know, that's what they're talking about. Like, you're afraid to share your artwork because you're going to feel like you don't fit in. And you already feel that way 90% of the time because you do art and a little bit more introverted, or spend a lot more time, not as social as maybe the rest of the people around you, that maybe a fear of getting tossed out of your own peer group or something, or your own family. There's things, well, you know, I've been, since I was young, like, very pro legalize marijuana, and I used to draw pot leaves on like, you'd wrap your school books and or your college books or texts in, paper bag, and keep the text nice and pristine. And I draw on the covers of those, and one of them was a pot leaf, and my mom found it, and oh my God, it was the end of the world. But luckily, had she known what it was, that's the way it would have been. And so I get the not really wanting to show your artwork to everybody kind of deal. That there is a fear that you'll be judged harshly, or not good enough, and there's really, on the not good enough front, enough of that going on in your own head, because you're trying to push your skills, or you're trying to learn something that's not maybe sometimes coming out the way that you think it should, and you'll rework a piece or redo a piece. And so I get that, that you already have this maybe not feeling good enough thing going on, criticizing yourself or your own skills, that you really don't want it from other people. And it's really harsh that somebody, like, if you just judged me on this painting, this is just a simple, folksy, country kitchen type painting that, happens to fit my kitchen decor. But it's not necessarily my normal style. My normal style is more kind of surrealist. So, or that's the general direction that I prefer to go in. But I like stopping and painting stuff like this once in a while. That it reminds me of a secure time period or place in my family history where I did belong and didn't feel outcast, and I was embraced for learning this skill, and shown that you can get through it and people will like it. But that instant, in grade school, where because the kid he would come up and he'd steal my papers and run around the room with it and just pick on me and bully me. That when doing art and allowing them enough to get them to stand still and stop bullying you, really makes you understand the power of your own skill. So most artists or even photographers are worried about, oh my God, what if they don't like it? And there is a scare, that a real fear that goes on, that people won't like what they're doing. I think I've had enough reassurance over the years that to know that if I like it, they're gonna like it. I tend to not finish something until I'm happy with it, and if I'm happy with it, then other people are gonna think it's okay. So I got past that fear, but I had that fear really come up when I started portrait photography and running the studio, and I honestly found out, training other people, that this was a common fear, that I'm not good enough, or I'm not sure enough of myself, and after doing it for a while, you do gain the confidence to, yeah, it's good enough, and you really have to train your mind to get past that and quit worrying about being ostracized for expressing yourself. basically, I've gotten to the point, if, some of the naysayers that I have strained relationships with anyway have a problem with something I'm doing, I really, you know, they're not going to buy it anyway, so why would I care what you think of it, And that's kind of my stance on it. Most people that, try to minimize your talent, or what, that you're seriously trying to do this, don't have any anyway. So, quit worrying about it. But I do understand the fear of, losing your peer group or your sense of belonging, because it leaves you open and vulnerable. I mean, it's just the hierarchy of needs, You get the food, shelter, and water, and the next need is belonging, and you're afraid of doing something that will so shock and dismay somebody else that they'll quit speaking to you. And I got that very early on when I was young, and then I had that crop up when I was doing portrait photography, because it was sales, which meant it had to be good enough to sell. And that's scary, because you're getting your footing and on doing portraits and interacting with people. Portrait photography is the one thing that you do it interactively. It's an art form that you actually do with other people involved, so it's not always up to you that it turns out great either, but it is, because you got to have the right attitude and, be confident enough to know that you can get the smile out of the people and them walk away with a good experience. So, one of my things with it was based on family. So this whole painting, since it's going in my own home, is kind of about family still yet. One of the reasons that I could really get behind doing the job and selling portraits is because I had a strong belief in family. So this little cluster of flowers are representative of my children, my grandchildren, and remembrance of who taught me how to paint back in second and third grade, things that adults were painting, I remember sitting with my grandma on Sundays and watching Bob Ross in the afternoons, and her and I figuring out how to get it done and spending a lot of good time together that was enjoyable. I'm not sure why she quit painting. My grandmother, she just did. We moved, and maybe she didn't have time for it, or she wasn't as into it, or it made her miss her sister. But she kind of put them down, and I never did. I've kind of always done, So I do have this style at times, this artsy, folky, farmhouse kind of decor look once in a while that comes out. I like it. It's cutesy. And, there's nothing wrong with having various styles. I can do this and turn around and do something totally different that's more surreal or sarcastic or, cartoonish. Or I don't think there's anything wrong with exploring different styles and kind of coming up with your own and something that you're okay with. Because once you get past your own inner critic, then it's easier to expose yourself. Expose yourself to others. I'm sorry, I have like a cough going on. I got a cold, and I'm trying to get this done because I haven't put one out. Anyway, so that's kind of my take on vulnerability, that it's something you grow past. People start to recognize that you're good at something and not be so judgmental of you. So, just push past it, and you'll get to the other side of it and feel okay with it, and come to recognize that, you know, it's an inner fear that there's really no basis for. You know, that you're going to be accepted, and if they can't accept your art and that you're an artist, that's okay, you know. But that wraps this up, and I'll see you on the flip side.